Yo, it's me, Aardvark. Here's how I made a platformer level which was put through Google Translate way too many times. Before I start on how I made the level, it's worth talking about the level which inspired this. The Great Journey by II Destroyer 50 II is a fairly generic but by no means bad platformer level. It was released pretty soon after 2.2 came out, and what's notable about it is that this level has dialogue which is entirely in Spanish. The creator gave the option of changing language to English by turning on low detail mode, however, it's really obvious that they just ran it all through Google Translate. This gave some rather funny dialogue at times. My personal favorite is this one. After playing this, I thought it'd be pretty funny to make a similar platformer level, only for my level, the dialogue would be put through Google Translate so many times that it's basically incomprehensible. Before making the dialogue, I had to build the actual layout and decoration of the level first. I wanted the level to be pretty generic in terms of platformer levels, so I decided on a pretty simple concept. You start in a forest area and get told that there's a gem that you need to collect inside a dungeon. You then head to the dungeon, collect a couple keys to unlock some doors, and retrieve the gem. You then head back out and the level's over. Initially, I was intending on putting an entire boss fight at the gem section, but I decided that that was a bit unnecessary for what's essentially a joke level. In the layout, I put in some spots for dialogue in various places. One of them is a guy who needs fish from a pond, another is someone trapped in a dungeon which you can free, and finally there's a person guarding a gate who tells you riddles which you need to solve in order to pass. This gave me more space to add in dialogue, which would eventually get corrupted by Google Translate. The first part is a forest area, so I made it have two different types of ground blocks. One of them is just grass, and the other is mossy stone. I added black glow to give it depth, and then I added some extra details so that they weren't just boring. I then made some art of a tree which I placed around the forest with waving leaves which I made using a looping rotate trigger. Some of the gameplay in the forest area has water, so I added some triggers to make a splash sound when you hit the water, and I also lowered the speed and music volume by about half to make it feel like you're in water. I liked the 2.0 monsters which were in the Great Journey, so I added my own ones just before the dungeon. As for the music, I wanted something cheerful, so I found this song by Teffy D on Newgrounds, which sounds pretty nice. The second part of the level is inside the dungeon. It starts off with a few rooms with no music and just ambient noise. I wanted this part to be mostly grey and be really dark. This part of the level has pretty simple blocks, so I made up for it by putting in a bunch of extra details like chains on the ceiling and broken cages on the floor. On the ground, there are a bunch of rocks mixed with skulls, which I think looks really good and adds to the atmosphere. I made an area tint effect, which gives a slight glow around your icon, and I also used the same effect for various fire objects around the dungeon, including a torch which you pick up. In the second part of the dungeon, there's a large open room, so I decided to add in some fire in the hall, and ignore the fact that this fire is right next to wood deco. I don't care if it doesn't make sense, it looks nice. Later on, I thought that the walls in this part looked a bit empty, and so I added some smaller, inaccessible rooms to fill out the space. This part's music may already be familiar to you. In the part where you get the gem, I decided to make it look fancier and less run down than the rest of the dungeon. I wanted to actually accentuate it as a point of interest. The next part of the level after that is just more forest, which I used the exact same deco as in the first part. Now, this part of the video is probably what you've been waiting for. The dialogue. After finishing the decoration, I went into a Google Doc and typed up some fairly generic dialogue. It's slowly scrolling down right now if you want to read it. Honestly, the untranslated text is actually already a bit awkward in some places, but, you know, it's supposed to be translated, so it doesn't matter. For the riddles, I just googled hard riddles and took 3 which looked like they'd be hard to understand if you put them through Google Translate too many times. As for the translations, I got my good friend Stingy on a call where we both reacted to the translations together. There wasn't really a pattern to how I translated them, I just kinda clicked on random languages until I thought the text was messed enough. I recorded this process, so here's some highlights. Alright, I've got my friend Stingy here with me, and we're gonna be just doing all these translations live here.
Hello.
For you. Some of these lines are like actually kind of awkward in English already, but
Yeah.
it just adds to it. Now I want a quest for you!
You should turn this whole level into a romance. I'm sure that would be very
I
nice.
wonder... Now
Yeah.
I'm looking for you! Okay, that went from love to just like, you've committed a crime. This is the sort of important line, which actually tells the player that they need to collect 5 fish. So let's see if this is going to get corrupted. What?
Wait.
What happened there?
Wrong animal, dude.
Come back when you are 5? Okay.
OMG! Where did you get OMG from? That's like
I don't
internet
know.
slang.
Alas, the
Alas.
torture must be in vain. That's nuts.
What? Shakespearean ass Google Translate, dude.
That's like poetic. What?
Dissemble?
What?
You didn't even need to do it multiple times. It just screwed up
Okay,
first try.
I'm just keeping that. What is disembowel? This is not even recognizing this is a word. Wait,
Is it
hold
not
on.
a word?
I'm searching this up. What?
Bread? Bread?
What? Okay. Yeah, it's just correct. I'll put that through a few times anyway. Are you sure?
Are you sure? Are you sure?
That's
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah.
Here's some moons as a reward. Okay, months immediately. Cool.
I promise later. Okay.
Wait,
Few
fish! Oh
Fish!
my god!
What? What? What?
This is not the
How?
fishing guy. Oh my god!
Everybody just has fish with them.
Final line is just bye.
There's no way it can mess this up. You should make like this. Hello? Hello?
Okay, I know what I'm putting there. Hello. How did it do that?
How does it? Hello and bye are like opposites, dude. Wow, that's the entire thing now translated.
We did it.
We did it.
I can just translate
know-
the whole thing to Spanish off screen.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be really bad for people who actually speak Spanish.
It's probably
that's
pretty bad for people who speak English, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, all of this
It
is
does not
quite
matter what language you choose, you probably get a pretty similar experience. With the translated dialogue done, I actually had to add it into the level. I was inspired by Celeste for the dialogue boxes, where each character's box has different decorations. I made the player's box flipped so that the dialogue around the level feels more like a conversation. Each character has 3 or 4 different sprites for different emotions which appear in the dialogue box. I locked these boxes to the same position at the top of the screen using the UI trigger, which I'm very glad exists because I really did not want to use the follow camera option in the move trigger. For the dialogue, I wanted to conserve groups since I thought it would be really inefficient to assign each piece of text its own group. I came up with a solution where all of the text is stacked on top of each other and it's moved down with no move time to give the illusion that it's being toggled. I used an area fade trigger to make sure that the objects go invisible when they aren't in the area inside the text box. To visualize this for you, I put a move time on the text so you can actually see how it works. To activate the text, I use the player touch block, which activates groups when the player clicks inside of them. I use the same block to control the advancing of the dialogue by making it activate a sequence trigger. To make sure players know that they can interact with this block, I put in a state block which fades on this little circle above the thing that you're trying to interact with. Also, in this stage of making the level, I thought it would be nice to give the cubes around the level little animations. In the Riddle Master part, I used trigger orbs to allow the player to choose their answers to the riddles. If you fail, you get fireballed. When I got up to the bit where you collect the gem, I thought it felt a bit anticlimactic, so I made the screen zoom in and have flashing text saying gemstone collected. Nah, I'm just kidding, I also translated that. The final thing I did in the level was translate all the text to Spanish and add an option to toggle the language at the start. I could go more in depth about how certain things in the level work, but I don't want to bore you, so I'm going to end this section. To end the video, I'm going to give you a full showcase of the level with all of the coins and all dialogue. If you want to play the level in-game, which I highly recommend, I'd suggest you click off the video now and go play it. Thank you for watching this video, and let me know in the comments if you want me to make similar videos for future projects. Anyway, bye!